Everything you see here should not exist. 12,000 years ago, there was no bay, no harbor, and no city. Beneath these waters lies a lost world, buried for thousands of years beneath mud, salt water, and modern development. Instead of a bay, a massive river valley once dominated this entire landscape. Mammoths walked where cargo ships now travel, and grasslands covered what is now deep ocean water. For early humans, this was not a coastline. It was a thriving inland world, rich with food and fresh water. The most important feature wasn't the valley itself. It was the river cutting a deep canyon through the mountains. Long before ocean waves arrived, the Golden Gate was already here as a giant river canyon. This canyon would later become the doorway through which the Pacific Ocean entered the valley. At the end of the Ice Age, this valley supported one of the richest ecosystems on the West Coast. Then, a geological clock started ticking. The world was warming, and sea levels were rising. At first, the changes were almost invisible. Then the ocean began moving inland, year after year. The Pacific Ocean was approaching a gateway that would permanently reshape California. When the ocean finally reached the canyon, the transformation accelerated dramatically. Entire forests disappeared beneath rising water, and familiar landscapes vanished forever. For the valley's wildlife, the available land was slowly disappearing year after year. What had once been a river valley was beginning to resemble something entirely new. Geologically speaking, the birth of the bay happened with surprising speed. The flooding created powerful tidal forces that immediately started reshaping the landscape. These hidden channels would eventually determine where the world's ships could travel. The Lost Valley was gone. In its place, one of the world's greatest natural harbors was beginning to emerge. The flooding was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new geological force that would reshape the bay for thousands of years. Every tide acted like a giant underwater bulldozer, moving sediment and deepening critical channels. Some of the deepest shipping channels used today were being created thousands of years before humans built their first ports. While tides carved deeper water, rivers were quietly building new land around the edges. The future shape of the Bay Area was being decided by mud rather than mountains. These wetlands became one of the most productive ecosystems on the Pacific coast. The bay had become a biological engine capable of supporting millions of animals every year. Long before modern cities arrived, people understood the extraordinary value of this new environment. The bay provided food transportation and trade routes for thousands of years. For millennia, the bay remained one of the richest landscapes in Western North America. Beneath the water lies a surprisingly rugged landscape, inherited from the ancient valley. These underwater features would eventually determine where major cities could grow. When outsiders first entered the bay, they found one of the finest natural harbors on Earth. What looked like empty water would soon become one of the most strategic locations in North America. The shape of the bay was quietly determining where people would build their future. Then, one event transformed the bay from a regional waterway into a global destination. The deep channels created thousands of years earlier suddenly became priceless.
Unlike most cities, San Francisco had little room to grow, and every acre became valuable.
Instead of adapting to nature, people began changing nature itself.
Entire sections of today's city did not exist naturally and were built directly over the bay.
Some vessels became part of the landscape itself.
Entire ships remain trapped beneath modern San Francisco. Few people realize they are walking above a lost harbor, frozen in time. The harbor transformed San Francisco into one of the most important ports on the Pacific.
The natural shoreline has been altered so dramatically that parts are almost unrecognizable. Modern trade still depends on channels carved thousands of years ago.
Every major city around the bay owes its existence to this ancient flood.
The Lost Valley never disappeared. It simply vanished beneath the water. But the story of the bay is far from over.
From above, the Bay Area appears stable and permanent. In reality, it is still changing.
Much of the land supporting modern infrastructure was once underwater.
Some of San Francisco's most valuable real estate sits on ground that nature never intended to exist.
The city now spends billions defending land that was once part of the bay itself. The same ocean that created the bay is beginning to reclaim parts of it.
For the first time in centuries, the shoreline is starting to move again. The areas facing the greatest risk today are often the same places flooded 12,000 years ago. Critical infrastructure often occupies the most geologically unstable ground. Engineers are now fighting a battle against the same forces that originally created the bay.
The ancient landscape hidden beneath the city may determine its future.
The port exists here for one reason. Geology created the perfect deep-water access point thousands of years ago.
Every ship entering the bay still follows pathways carved by tides after the Great Flood.
Modern commerce continues to depend on landscapes shaped before human civilization existed.
Regions exists because an ancient valley disappeared beneath the ocean. Even deeper beneath the bay, another force continues shaping the landscape: tectonic movement. The same tectonic forces that helped create the region are still active today.
The flooding of the valley was only one chapter in a much larger geological story.
The evidence of the Lost Valley still survives beneath layers of mud and water. Scientists can now recreate a landscape that vanished thousands of years before San Francisco existed. The bay we know today is not a permanent feature of nature, but the result of extraordinary geological change. Beneath one of America's most famous cities lies an entirely different world. The original landscape can still be traced beneath the water today. Modern ships are unknowingly following the path of an ancient river that vanished thousands of years ago. Beneath the mud lie the remains of entire ecosystems that disappeared during the Great Flooding.
Every layer of sediment acts like a page in a history book, recording the birth of the bay.
Tiny particles hidden in the mud can reveal entire landscapes that no longer exist. If the water disappeared, a forgotten world would emerge from beneath the bay.
This region experienced one of the most dramatic landscape transformations in North America. The economy of an entire region still depends on decisions made by geology thousands of years ago.
The same process that created the bay may already be beginning again.
Nature is slowly reminding the region which parts of the landscape originally belonged to the bay. Humanity is now spending billions trying to slow a process that created the bay itself.
Some of the most valuable property in California was built on land that once lay beneath the water.
Entire ships remain trapped beneath the city as evidence of the bay's explosive growth.
The city appears permanent, but its foundations tell a different story.
From space, the bay looks timeless. Yet geologically, it is remarkably young.
The modern Bay Area emerged through thousands of years of continuous change.
One breach transformed the future of California forever.
Every community around the bay shares the legacy of an ancient flood. To understand San Francisco, we must first uncover the landscape hidden beneath it. This landscape is the result of one of the greatest transformations in North American history.
The bay replaced an entire world that existed for thousands of years.
Long before ships crossed these waters, a river shaped the future coastline. The flooding event that created the bay changed the geography of the American West forever.
The landscape evolved continuously over 12,000 years. Modern commerce still follows pathways carved by prehistoric forces.
The story of the bay is still being written today.
An ancient flood created the foundation for one of the world's most influential regions.
The lost world never truly vanished. It remains preserved beneath the waters of the bay.
12,000 years ago, there was no San Francisco Bay. Today, its legacy shapes millions of lives every day.